洛杉矶道奇队的更衣室正在经历一场前所未有的考验。在明尼苏达客场系列赛中，大谷翔平与菜鸟捕手 Rushing 之间爆发了一段震惊全美的场边交锋。大谷罕见的当场拍头示意要求挑战，而年轻的 Rushing 一度需要在休息区接受队友安慰。这起事件不仅让道奇队友 Muncy 和 Betts 罕见地公开发声，就连名人堂传奇投手 John Smoltz 也亲自现身说法，以自己与捕手 Greg Olson 在投手丘上激烈冲突的亲身经历，深入剖析这场投捕风波的真相。当数据分析表和投手的直觉产生矛盾时，一名菜鸟捕手该选择相信谁？队友们的回音和名人堂巨星的忠告，又将给 Rushing 带来怎样的转变？接下来，我们就透过中文字幕来收看这段精彩内容。
Never let a pitcher show you up, and I did it.
All right, and I am pumped to be joined, as always, by the Hall of Famer, John Smoltz. John, how are we doing this week?
Doing good. I felt like today I should probably have a jacket on, to do this podcast and spice it up a little bit.
This is getting more serious, it's getting more and more people watching, so you needed to dress it up a little bit like me today, John, I wanted to start with the Dodgers situation with Shohei, Dalton Rushing, his catcher now. I don't know if you saw, but in his start on Wednesday night, Will Smith is Shohei's typical catcher, but because of injuries, Dalton Rushing has been catching him. And it kind of, as much as you will ever see from Shohei Ohtani, kind of boiled over a little bit in frustration with Rushing behind the plate and not challenging, and Shohei pretty demonstratively tapped his head and called for a challenge and was right, and Rushing had to be consoled in the dugout at points. It's just gotten to a point where it's seemingly boiled over, and you could see Shohei talking to him pretty sternly, Freddie Freeman, Dave Roberts, all having conversations with Dalton Rushing in the dugout. My question to you is, can you walk us through the situation a little bit did you ever have your typical catcher and then maybe had to have, maybe not a rookie, but a younger catcher step in and catch you and kind of guide him to help you along the way? Like, this seems like a situation out in LA.
Yeah, it's definitely something that you got to get used to. And in this day and age, it's more complicated with all the information these guys are trying to process.
Yeah.
Whereas where I had Greg Olson was one of my favorite people of all time. We had an altercation on the mound. I missaw something. I didn't see a sign that he put down, and I thought he was being stubborn, and I waved him out, which was wrong on my part. And he kind of chewed me out, and the pitching coach had to come down and, you guys are best friends. Are you okay? I said, yeah, it's on me. And Greg did what I told him he should do. I said in the beginning, don't ever let a pitcher show you up. And I did it. So he lived up to what I told him, and he told me on the mound. So I was wrong. But then there's situations where you don't flow. Like I got a chance to work with Brian McCann, and he was a rookie, but it was a different approach. I walked him through everything. I was a veteran pitcher. I walked him through everything. I helped him get navigated with the big league structure. Today, there's so much information, and guys are in different stratospheres. Shohei's in an atmosphere by himself. Can you imagine a young catcher just being back there going, oh my gosh, this is a franchise? So I'm sure it's taken a minute, and they'll work it out and they'll figure it out. But it's a thing. There's nothing wrong with saying it's not a thing. It's just they just have to work it out.
John, is there any part of you to this day with that story with Greg Olson believes that he didn't you did see correctly? Or do you truly believe him when you say you just missed what he put down?
I watched the video. He was right. Yeah, I was a little bit going through a blind spot anyways, and we knew each other so well. That's why I was caught off guard. I'm like, he's not putting down slider.
Yeah.
And I'm going, and I thought I shook off. And when you shake off 4 times, you realize, well, I just didn't see it. So I thought he was being stubborn by putting that first finger down a couple times. And I'm like, wait a minute. It was my fault, my bad. And it was a moment that I'm sure caught all of us, all the teammates up. They're like, oh my gosh, they're getting after it. And it was just for that moment.
It's really the NL East as a whole.
Seeing Smitty not there, I think I in specific took for granted how much he carried for us, especially on the pitching side. And now seeing Rush kind of going through it and seeing like how hard it is for him, and how he's stepping up, and he's doing his best. Like he needs experience, right? And this is his experience, and I feel like he's learning on the fly. He is getting better. He's getting better, and it takes a little time, right? But seeing not having Smitty and seeing what he did for the pitching staff on top of hitting makes me really appreciate. Wow, Will Smith really does do a lot for us, and now having Rush try and step in and do that, that's really hard for him, especially being a rookie.
Yeah, well, let's start by saying Rush is doing an amazing job.
He's doing an amazing
job. But like you said, it does make you appreciate exactly what Will does. And, Will was the same when he was at that stage.
Yep, exactly.
Will had to learn. Yep. And, Will had to learn with Kersh,
which is much tougher.
A little bit tougher, I mean, and I think, but I also think that's one of the things that was good for Will. And I think, you look at what Rush is doing with Shohei and with Yama, like it's good for him to understand. And, we talk about this in the infield all the time, like why are we calling certain pitches in these situations? And, not that we're second guessing anybody, but you start getting this feel for the game that I think Rush is still learning. Sometimes it's okay to get away from what the sheet is telling you to call. And that was the thing that I think Will learned with Kersh a lot, because, what's Kersh throwing? He's throwing a fastball slider, and it's going to be into a right-handed batter. Well, there's a lot of times when Will would look at the sheet and be like, well, we can't throw a slider to this guy. He hits it. And it's like, that's what Kersh is going to throw. That's his best pitch. He needs to throw it. And I think that helped Will learn. Sometimes it's okay to go off script and, do things that maybe the data says is not what you should do. And I think, that's one thing that we would agree Rush is learning, especially with Shohei. Shohei wants to throw certain pitches in certain locations, and maybe the data says that's not the best thing to do. But, when the pitcher is convicted in doing that, you have to go off what the pitcher wants, especially when it's a guy like Shohei, Yama,
I mean, really, everybody in our staff. Yeah. At some point, he'll be, when Snell and all these guys get back, like he'll be catching all those guys.
Yeah, and
as well.
There's times where, hey, that's probably not the pitch you should throw, but that's what the pitcher really wants to throw, and so you got to let him do it, and you got to make sure you're behind him. And I think that's one of the things that Rush is learning, and it's it does make you appreciate Will, because Will's grown so much in that aspect of it that there's no second guessing what he's calling back there, and the pitchers have given full trust to Will, and I feel like Will's hardly ever shaken off. Like it's very few times, and we go to Will. One of the things I love when Yama's pitching, and I know you've seen this. Yama goes to his pitch comm, right? And he'll call a pitch, and he looks at Will, and he's like, he wants to make sure Will thinks it's a good pitch to throw. And then that's where Will is like, if that's what you want to throw, then yes.
Yeah.
Like that's
for sure.
That's the best pitch you should throw.
For sure. I knew, and then I know I want to speak a little bit about the situation in Minnesota with Rush and Shohei. Obviously, we all, everybody kind of saw it. That was really kind of I feel like a huge moment for Rush there. When they go down and whatnot, we got to go down and look at me and you down there. We just being nosy.
Wait, what y'all doing down there?
Yeah, that's what I was being nosy, man. I was really just kind of seeing how this is going to play out. Like what was possibly going to be said.
I think it was a good growing moment.
Yeah, for sure.
Obviously you don't want any of that to happen with your teammates, but I think it's a good growing moment for both guys, because Show's not always going to be able to throw to Will,
right?
And for Rush, he's got to learn that and this is one of those moments where it was like, hey, sometimes Show wants to throw a pitch that maybe isn't the best pitch to throw, and I think that's what Rush was kind of learning in that moment. And sometimes things can speed up during the game, and I think that's a little bit what happened there. And again, like we've said before, that's experience that you learn how to deal with that,
right,
the more you've been in those types of situations.
And what I really enjoyed was like how Rush later on took accountability, and he knows that he has a lot on his plate. Hey, he really knows it. You're the catcher for a staff that's
first in baseball for in a lot of categories. So, yeah, that's a lot on your plate, and he's done an amazing job handling it.
Mm-hmm. He's done a great job handling it, and I think he'll just keep learning. He'll just keep learning, and then as Smitty comes back, I'm sure he'll learn even quicker.
Look, not one of us knew how to handle that situation at that stage.
No, we all had to learn.
Yeah,
everybody does.
I mean, how many times were you peeking around the corner and I was breaking a bat down in the tunnel or something? Which
I love, by the way. I love that.
But like we've all been there. You have to learn, you have to grow, and you can't do that until you've experienced it. And sure. that's what he's going through right now.
Exactly.
看完 Muncy 和 Betts 这段对话，我觉得有几个非常值得深入探讨的重点。首先，这件事的核心其实不是冲突，而是一个关于 pitch calling 哲学的深层问题。在现代棒球中，数据分析已经深入到每一个配球决策。捕手手上都有一张 pitch sheet， 上面清楚标示着对每位打者应该配什么球路、什么位置。但正如 Betts 所说的，有时候你必须 go off script， 也就是脱离数据表的指示。为什么？因为投手的 conviction 信念比任何数据都重要。当大谷翔平这种等级的投手想要在特定 count 投出特定球路时，即使数据说这不是最佳选择，捕手也必须尊重投手的意志。这让我想到 Betts 举的 Kershaw 的例子。Kershaw 的滑球就是他的最强武器，即使数据显示某位右打者对滑球打击率不错，你能不让 Kershaw 投他最有信心的球吗？答案很明显。而这正是 Rushing 作为一名菜鸟捕手正在学习的功课。Will Smith 之所以被视为 MLB 顶尖捕手之一，不仅仅是因为他的打击贡献，他的 framing、game calling 能力，以及与投手群建立的信任关系，都是需要好几年实战经验才能累积的。Smith 几乎从来不被投手 shake off， 这代表着投手对他配球的完全信任。这种默契的价值是无法用 WAR 或任何数据来量化的。最让我印象深刻的是 Rushing 在事件后主动承担责任的态度。一名 Rookie 面对像大谷翔平这样的超级巨星，能够不退缩，坦然面对，并从中吸取教训，这展现了极大的心理素质。Muncy 说得好，我们每个人都经历过这样的时刻，重要的是你如何从中学习和成长。大家觉得 Rushing 能成长为下一个顶级捕手吗？欢迎在留言区分享你们的看法。感谢大家收看这支影片。你觉得 Rushing 能在大谷翔平身边快速成长为顶尖捕手吗？欢迎在留言区告诉我们你的想法，别忘了订阅频道并按赞哦。